Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Season Ticket Holders. I'm your host, Dane Billingston, and I have a new and special guest for us today. He is a reporter for Code Sports and the Daily Telegraph, a Kennedy Award winner for Student Journalist of the Year, a former league player himself who has represented Malta in internationals. You can catch him on NRL Tonight on Fox Sports, and as a new regular on the Bloke in a Bar podcast, West's Tigers tragic, Tyson Jackson. Mate, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, good, mate. After that intro, you're going to give people a false sense of who I actually am.
Got a
No, man, good. Really happy to be here, bro. Really happy to be here.
legend, mate. Thank you for coming on. Now, mate, when I get a few new guests on for the first time, I just want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what got you into the great game of rugby league.
Yeah, like you said, my name's Tyson. I've been doing this now, kind of reporting in and around the reporting game for the last 4 years. So I got the job straight out of high school. Grew up in Sydney South, so around that St George area. Spent a bit of time out west, which when I was born, which is where the Tigers kind of love comes from. But man, to be honest, as a kid, right, I didn't start watching rugby league until you know, maybe like early teens, like real early teens. And I've always just loved competition. I've always loved competing, and that's where the love for playing came. I stepped into the world of journalism purely just from wanting to somehow keep a foot in the game after I finished playing. I got to be a part of a couple of cool systems. Spent some time in SG Ball at the Sharks and Dragons, did a preseason with the Jersey Flag Bulldogs squad. And like you mentioned, got to play for my country of Malta, or my heritage. So yeah, for me, it was just forward thinking. It was, do I want to get into coaching? Do I want to get into, analysis, things like that? And I just kind of landed on journalism as the best possible route to put my skills into the game without playing.
And you're blowing up, mate. You're everywhere now, which is awesome to see. You mentioned not watching footy into your teens. So how did you land on the Tigers?
Yeah, well, it's just like it's where that's where I was brought up, right? So I grew up in Campbelltown for the first couple of years of my life, and everyone in that area was a Tigers supporter. Such a big kind of a network of talent and players, and like also I'm 23 as of Sunday, so yesterday. And when I was young, the Tigers were huge. Like Benji Marshall was on the scene, and Chris Heinington, Robbie Farah, Scott Prince, Brett Hodgson. Like the list goes on and on, right? So for all those young kids that have grown up in the last 5 years or so with Penrith as their main team, that was me with the Tigers when I started, right? Like they had the stars of the game. They had the big guys, and then being in that community and being in that area, Campbelltown Sports Stadium was only 10 minutes from my house. Like you kind of just brought into that. But my parents weren't Tigers supporters. Like my dad's a tragic Roosters fan, and my mum really didn't watch footy. So yeah, I guess I kind of molded into that just off my surroundings.
Well, happy birthday, mate. Perfect birthday present on the weekend with your Tigers 44-16 over the Cowboys. Mate, big question. Have you got your grand final tickets yet?
Oh, mate, I've been super confident leading into the season on how I think the Tigers will go. And I think they've got a good chance of shaking up the comp this year. But like 24 hours before that game, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, well, I don't know if we can do this, right? Like, and yeah, I try to stay pretty level headed now with the job because, like I spend a lot of time at the club and around the club. And for me, like, work is the top priority. So to be non-biased is a massive part that I pride myself on. Obviously, you like the club and you want to see them do well, but non-biasedness. So up until Saturday, when I'm reporting on the game and I'm reporting on different outcomes that could come as a result, I'm not cheering for the Tigers. But on Saturday, I was at Leichhardt Oval, and yeah, like the performance was great. I thought the first half especially was really good. The second half, I think they kind of switched off a little bit, but yeah, mate, I haven't bought my grand final tickets yet, but I do believe it's going to be a good year, and that's from someone who watches the sport for a job saying that rather than a fan.
Mate, you've seen the Benji Marshall video laying down the law. He's obviously been there for a couple years now. That video went a bit viral too, just what he was saying to his players. He's had a lot of question marks, a lot of doubt as to his methods. Mate, he can come across as a little bit prickly to the media. I think everyone's sort of seen that a little bit. I know I've experienced a little bit, but he seems to be finding his groove. and has the respect of the players, right? And at the end of the day, that seems to be just about one of the most important things. What are you seeing in and around the club just on the influence that he's continuing to have and how that's growing?
All you have to do, right, Dave, is talk to the people, talk to the players about how they're finding everything. And when I started talking to them early this year, there was a sense of confidence around them, but you couldn't really put your finger on why. They all said the same thing. Benji's come back better. Benji's, leading the boys really well. But until you get to see it in action, it's hard to kind of make a judgment for yourself. But I've seen the last couple of weeks, probably the last month or so, the way they train, the way they played, and then you look at the things in that documentary that has come out. I wouldn't even call him blow-ups. I'd just say he's firm. That little kind of change is, it might not seem like a lot from a fan's perspective, but as a player, right, when you're getting told certain things and they're clicking to you and they're staying with you, man, what you do on the field will follow as a result of that. And I think that's what's happened, right? Like, I've known Benji for a couple years, and I remember when his first year, at the club as a coach, we got into a bit of an altercation at a press conference. He didn't like a question that I asked, and he came and fired back at me over it. And that's fair enough, like they're not supposed to like the players and coaches aren't supposed to like everything that we ask, but we have a job to communicate messaging to the fans, and what they say is an important part of that. But we spoke about it afterwards, and we've been great ever since. And when I spoke to him on when was it last week? Friday, I think, or Thursday last week. I actually said to him, I said, mate, what was the thought process? Why did you come in with this kind of iron fist, this different personality that the players are all loving? But what happened? Because they wouldn't have came up to Benji and said, Benji, you have to change. And he just said it's a part of his development as a coach, right? Like, he's got all the players on his side, and now in order for them to progress, he's got to become a different type of coach. And it's refreshing to see, right? Because you have coaches in the NRL that have been around for years that refuse to change their ways, and then you just see as time goes on, the game goes past them, right? So Benji's been in 3 years now. He's got a very different look about him this year, and hopefully it's for the best for the Tigers because, yeah, from every fan's perspective, I think majority of the NRL want to see the Tigers do well.
That's true, mate. What was the question? Was it what was the question that made him blow up?
It was when it was right before Stefano announced that he was going to the Storm, and I just asked him. I said to Benji, I said, mate, Richo's come out and said it's fine that Stefano wants to leave because we only want people here that are going to be involved in the croc roll. So don't you think that's a pretty crappy thing to say about Steph, considering he's been here for so long and been a part of this kind of journey to be where you guys are now? Like, and this was right. They got the wooden spoon that year, I think, but it was right before last. It was where they made that big jump. If they kept Steph, they would be cheering. Like, I know they've got a mad forward pack now, but if they kept Stefano, like, that's a huge in for them. The guy's played Origin and now in a grand final last year. And he looked at me, he goes, you'll have to ask Richo that. And I said, well, mate, you're Richo, you're the coach of this club. Like, Richo's not saying any of this without your input, right? Like, this isn't, he goes, are you trying to put words in my mouth? I said, no, Benji, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm asking you a question. Like, you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but and I remember it blew up and I was speaking about it on 360. All of a sudden, my little altercation with Benji became the headline out of the story, not what Benji said, which is the last thing you want as a journo.
Look at you now, mate. Look at you now. Yeah, I've had similar things with Seabold and asking him about any sort of, as he lost the dressing room. And I remember that one blew up a little bit. He said, you're just trying to find a headline. But we all have to go through it as reporters, mate. Like, that's just what happens, right? Like, we all go through those moments, and it just leads to these types of things. Mate, based on the finals, I know it's been one game. I joke about grand final tickets. The finals drought. It's been so long. Is this the year, mate? You've seen like Luai firing, Benji getting it what he wants now. Do you think this is the year they finally break it? Mate, are you confident?
If the weekend's game was 40 minutes long, I would have said yes, this is the year. I just need to see a little bit more from their second half. For me personally, they still ran away with it. Limiting the Cowboys. That despite the Cowboys being poor, they have so many attacking weapons. So to limit them to 16 points is something that I think the Tigers can walk away being pretty proud of. But just for my liking, I just need to see a little bit better second half because that's going to show the consistency, right? If you can blow teams away in the first half, that's one thing. But you don't want a game that should be 50 points to 0 being, 40 to 32 or something like that, because that is what can happen. And that's where the Tigers have been for a long time. I think this weekend against the Rabbitohs is going to be big question marks. Couple of injuries surrounding the club at the moment, which by the time this is up, they might be answered, but we don't know who's going to run out for the Tigers yet. Taylor May's shoulder's a bit hay going. Stafford Toa is still out. But yeah, I just need to see a full 80 minutes before I can get completely on board. But as a fan, I'm confident. As a fan, I think this is the best we've looked in a very long time.
All right, quick tip, 2026, where do they finish?
7.
Okay, I'll let you go. They're going back to the finals, mate. You're on the board. Just before we go any further, guys, I just wanted to just do a quick thank you to our sponsor, National Freight Management. They specialize in domestic freight from cartons through to pallets nationwide. So thank you very much for jumping on board and supporting us. You can find all the information on our website. Mate, biggest story of the week, Alex Johnston breaks the try scoring record. We all thought or hoped it was going to happen. It stood for, I think, 54 years. Ken Irvine's 212 tries. He crosses for that double early in the second half. 40,000 fans, a large chunk of them, well, not a large chunk, but a lot of them ran onto the field. I know Wayne Bennett's feelings. I was at Wayne Bennett's presser the day before. He gave it to me. I said, would it feel special to do it against the Roosters? He said, you have nothing better to do than sit in the office and think these things up. He was on form, Wayne, the day before the game. He didn't want it. I know Latrell Mitchell came out and said a few things, but I think AJ himself, just knowing how the moment went, the floodgates opened. The first player out there was a fan out there was like a rooster. And then those scenes, mate, they're going to go down in all-time rugby league folklore. What did you just make of the whole spectacle and how it all went down for Alex Johnston?
Yeah, I think the pictures that came out of that game are amazing, right? Like, it couldn't have happened at a worse time for the Rabbitohs. 30 seconds after halftime, like 30 seconds before halftime would have been better. But yeah, look, I think I was really concerned from a safety point of view, like what could happen. Like the sad reality of life is we don't live in a world where you can trust 20,000 fans to run on the field and hope that all it takes is one person to do something stupid and ruins it for everyone, right? So that was my biggest concern. I think the Roosters handled it quite well. All their players went straight up the tunnel, like they and if they tried to stay out there and things like that, that's when things could get bad. So, but it was so nice to see everyone that ran on the field, or from what we saw, was there for the right reason. That was to celebrate such a monumentous moment with Alex Johnston. Like the try was great, like, length of field. It's better than one that's going up to the bunker, right? And then you're waiting to find out if it's a try or not, and you got all these fans on the field that are potentially going to have to run off if it's disallowed. But I think, yeah, it couldn't have happened in a better situation. Better than it happening against the Tigers in Gosford this weekend, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, like I thought either it had to happen this week, or we're potentially looking at 70,000 at Good Friday against the Bulldogs, which I can't guarantee is going to be safe for anyone, because that game's always heated, and I think everyone just was there for the right reasons this week. And yeah, I loved the scenes.
It was awesome, man. I really wanted it to happen. I kept comparing it to Buddy Franklin a few years ago with the Swans and how they all ran out there for his thousands and stuff. And it was just awesome scenes in that game. And now Rugby League's got their own version. I just want to talk to you more about his career as a whole. Like, he doesn't really get selected in that rep footy conversation. Obviously, he's done some great stuff for PNG. I was looking before, never really in that consideration for Origin, played one game for Australia. If he was a Queenslander, mate, he might have played for a decade. You know what I mean? We don't know. We don't know for sure. So where does it put with wingers? Because like if he was a Premier League player or something like that and just broke the all-time goal scoring record, he could consider it like a bit of a GOAT. You know what I mean? Like where I'm going with that. But for him, just being a finisher, he's not really considered that top echelon. Like even Brian To'o, we consider him to be sort of the greatest current generational winger on that par. So how do you think this affects him and where he's going to go down in history as far as wingers go?
Well, I think a big thing to look at is, the complete job of a winger. It's not just scoring tries. It's not just taking the first or second tackle carries after kicks, right? It's a combination of everything. But, you tend to not focus. Like when we talk about Brian To'o, we talk about the meters that he makes and getting out of trouble and how important that is for Penrith. But Alex Johnston has been so important for the Rabbitohs, like scoring tries. So it's such a subjective thing. Like there's not an objective measure you're looking at to rank these wingers. I think when it comes to halves and things like that, it's a little bit easier, to be honest, because they're involved in the game so much that, you can look at their passing, you look at their ball playing, their kicking. It's kind of all in that same section, right? But to be honest, a winger might take the first carry and then score a try on last tackle. You're not seeing as much of them as, some of these halves and fullbacks and, other positions in the game. I think Alex Johnston's a great winger. He obviously is a great winger because he scored all those tries. So, and that, in itself should rank him pretty high. But for me, my favorite style of winger is like a Brian To'o type, a hard worker, get you out of trouble. I think that's so effective because a try majority of the time is a team effort. Um, it starts with your play the balls, which could be, your front rowers or your second rowers, quick play the ball to your halves, shape, which your center could run like a block for you with a sweeping fullback and then a winger on the edge. There's so much that goes into tries that for me personally, I just prefer some of the other minute details that you don't see or that the average fan doesn't see. But you have to hold Alex Johnston in such high regard. Like he just broke the try scoring record. So yeah, he should be up there. But just for my liking, I don't have him as like, your number one. But what he's done is truly special.
We would have treated him better in Queensland, mate. That's okay. Um, just coming out of the reports from the game too, obviously we all saw, do not enter the field of play. You'll be arrested, charged, fined $5,500, banned for 24 months. Then we see the Prime Minister go out there and do it. Saw a story that he tried to get into the lift, or he did get in the lift with the Roosters officials and the coach. They said, this is only for the coaches, to which Albanese is reported to have said, or his minder was to say, this is the Prime Minister. So I thought that was pretty funny, mate. Obviously, then we saw the images of him out there. I know some people weren't happy online, but it's going to go down as one of those all-time great rugby league moments. And today, mate, they unveiled the statue already out there at Maroubra. I was just watching the video before. Pretty cool. Did you see the statue at all? Have you catch a glimpse of it yet?
Yeah, I saw it. I don't think it looks that like. I don't think it looks like Alex Johnston very much. I had someone say to me, it kind of looks like a mix of Adam Reynolds and Alex Johnston joined together, which, I mean, if that's what they're going for, that's great. Like, I think it's cool that, like, you go to the Tiger Centre of Excellence, you go to, the Roosters and all clubs like that. And you don't see statues of modern players very frequently. Even at Brisbane, Suncorp have a whole lot of statues, but those modern players. So it's nice to see like modern player getting recognised for the work that he's done. I would have loved if it was like, bronze statue, that like big, tall, standing one like we're used to seeing. But hey, it's a good first step. I just think some of the details are a little bit off, but the messaging is right. That's what matters.
Mate, it was made in Thailand 3 years ago and it's just sitting there waiting in the wings. So there you go. Awesome little moment. I just watched it online. You've got the colours of the jumper and stuff there as well. So that's at their centre now and Maroubra, which is pretty cool. Mate, there's no shying away on this podcast that I'm a Broncos fan. And it has been a disgusting start to the year, just to put it lightly. I've just heard Gordon Tallis, who really doesn't seem to like Michael Maguire, saying some comments around how Adam Reynolds hasn't shown leadership by being on Fox Sports 24 hours after they lose to the Eels, to lose back-to-back their season openers. Not great optics, lack of leadership. If you don't know, they've now conceded 66 points. They lost to the Panthers first up. We've lost Payne Haas in the off-season, the World Club Challenge, embarrassed by the four-time premiers, and then blow a lead against the side they really should have beaten that Melbourne just put 50 on them. What's going on in Red Hill, mate? Because we hear these stories about Michael Maguire constantly. It's been there before they even kicked the ball for the season to start. Pretty rare to see a coach under pressure who's 2 games into his title defence year, but that's what we're seeing. What's happening in Brisbane?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dane. Like, and I wrote an analysis piece last week that the Broncos play a rocky style of football where they get bashed for 60 minutes and then the last 20 they come back and no one remembers, how bad the first 60 minutes were, like how many errors, their lack of ball, things like that. So they had fooled all of us into thinking that they're this really strong, dominant team. And I think we all thought hey, they're the premiers. They should come out in round one and put Penrith to the test. They should come out in round two. I tipped the Broncos. My only tip I got wrong last week. I tipped the Broncos over Parramatta. You know, I thought it was going to be a 13-plus win for the Broncos, and they came out in the first 20 minutes. They must have read my story and then chose to do the complete opposite. Tried to blow them out of the park in the first 20 minutes and then didn't play the last 60. Yeah, it's such a hard thing to put your finger on. I really like Michael Maguire as a coach. I think he clearly knows what he's doing. When you look at the resume that he has, you know, premiership at South, premiership at the Broncos now, stuff he did over in the Super League, State of Origin win, the New Zealand win. I mean, even his first year at the Tigers, he finished on the same amount of points that the Sharks did. And the Sharks beat the Tigers to make it into the 8 just on points for and against. Like, Tigers weren't a great team in 2019. I'd say, like, you know, they were good, but they weren't great, right? He obviously has something, but there just seems to be a lack of responding from the players. And I think a lot of the players in the last 2 games, they just look flat. And that's the only way to put it. I'm a very big player first advocate as well. I think, you know, NRL players have, although it's the best job in the world, it's one of the toughest jobs in the world, you know, to run into a brick wall every week. Like, it's hard to get yourself up for, but there's just been a couple of times in the last 2 weeks where we've seen camera shots of them and they just kind of look like they don't have any answers. And that's concerning, right? And it could be for a number of reasons. It could be because they've just won a premiership and they're experiencing a premiership hangover. It could be because the training's just got into them and it's been a bit too hard. But yeah, it's concerning. It's really concerning, especially when you look at who they're playing this week in Melbourne and Melbourne on Friday night. I don't like Brisbane's chances.
Mate, if you asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have said it was more of a, and I'm in the media, but a media agenda against Michael Maguire. But now we've seen these 2 performances, right? And it's just a very different story. Leading by a few tries against the Eels in that first half, you think they just run away with it. The way they capitulated like that, I have to feel now, I know it's only been 2 games, but I feel like there is something going on. Why does Payne Haas leave? I know that's the conspiracy theory to begin with, but it is shocking that they've somehow, the reigning premiers have gone down so quickly. Their defense is non-existent. It's so brittle. And the tries they're conceding, man, I know they've talked a lot about that edge, but there's just nothing happening there at the moment. They don't play like a premiership winning team at all. They're not playing like a top 8 team right now at all. Adam Reynolds, of course, 50-50 now with a rib cartilage injury to play in this grand final rematch. Hopefully they do get Brendan Priakora back. I believe they are supposed to give him. Apparently Michael Maguire gave them 3 days off after that Thursday night game. But honestly, mate, I could see them conceding 50 against Melbourne. And I say that with a very heavy heart. And they could still score 40 in that game. And if they do concede 50, I'll tell you right now, they can break that 50-point premiership record. If they are to concede 50, I say the Broncos can still go on and win it. But, mate, how worried are you about this game we should all be very excited about? I'm now more scared that it's going to be a bloodbath. How do you think this game this week's going to go between the Broncos and Melbourne?
Well, it depends. It depends how you look at the game against Melbourne and the Dragons, right? I thought Melbourne were pretty poor against the Dragons until the final 10 minutes. And you just see in the final 10 minutes like Tuafalogo scored a hat trick in 10 minutes of footy. And like, if you can flip a game like that easy, and the Dragons have been tougher this year than what the Broncos have been. Like, and that's not subjective. That is true. They have shown a lot more fight and resilience than what the Broncos have in the first 2 rounds of the year. So if the Storm can do that to the Dragons and where they currently sit, it does make me worried against the Broncos. But man, the Broncos just have so much talent that if they came out this week and completely capitulated, I would be absolutely baffled. They need to come out and put up a fight. Like that, they have to. I want to address as well, the Payne Haas stuff, and I know it's been spoken on. Payne Haas isn't scared of hard work. That rumor that's come out of Brisbane has, that's not true. You know, he might be over Michael Maguire's style of coaching. I can't talk on that. But the whole thing that Payne Haas doesn't want to work hard is one of the most ridiculous statements I've ever heard. I've done a lot with Payne. I'm probably the only journo to get his hair cut with Payne Haas, who did that for a story last year. You know, like he's what you see is what you get with Payne. You see how he's on the field. He's exactly like that at training. Gordon Tallis said on the weekend during the off-season, one of the hottest days in Brisbane, Payne Haas was just training at a local field by himself. that's Payne Haas. That's not scared of hard work, you know. So yeah, like that's the hard work thing for this side isn't the problem. Fatigue could be. But yeah, it's hard for me to say that they're going to go out and get a score put on them against Melbourne. There's a part of me that just won't believe it. Um, you hope that the Parramatta game will turn them. I'm not backing them to win, but yeah, I'm surprisingly optimistic that it'll be a better performance this week. But if it's not, it could be the start of something really bad for the Broncos.
Mate, if we wake up on Monday morning, it's 0-3 and they do get a score put on them, mate, 360, you're going to have a field day over there at Code Sports, mate. It's going to be a big week of Michael Maguire bashing, but maybe rightly so. It'll be interesting. Watch this space. Mate, and just the Newcastle Knights, obviously horror show if you're a Newcastle fan on the weekend. Do get the win, of course, and did a very good job without their two big stars. Kalen Pong has gone down with a right hamstring. They revealed it's a high-grade hamstring strain, 6 to 8 weeks, and Dylan Brown, left knee, grade 2 MCL, looking at 4 weeks, $2.7 million of their salary cap out. How is Newcastle going to deal with this? Of course, we did see Sandon Smith step up, so they're glad that they have him. They do have a little bit of depth there this year, expecting to get Fletcher Sharp there as well. How are they going to cope over this next month, 2 months, mate?
Yeah, it's a shame, right? Because I don't think many of us had high expectations for Newcastle, even with Dylan Brown and Kalen Ponga being there. There was just something that just didn't feel right. But their first 2 weeks have been outstanding. Even when when the boys went down in the first half on Sunday, to see what the team did to Manly, that did have Tom Trbojevic, did have Kula there, Ruben Garrick, Kamole Kawatu. They had star power there, and to hold them to the score they did, it's plausible. I like Justin Holbrook as a coach. I think his attacking structure is one of the best in the comp. Um, that first year Dominic Young was at the Roosters, they did a couple of things to the Roosters' attack to make sure Dominic Young was free to run and get those kind of free lines to the try line, and that was really helpful. And you can kind of see how he's brought that to Newcastle. But yeah, it's troubling without Kalen. It's really troubling. They've got the Warriors this week, and the Warriors are on a tear. I know they have the Tigers in the first 5 weeks too. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be a real struggle, and this is where we're going to test the character of a lot of those Newcastle boys, and if they are a better team and an improved side, they'll be better than what they were last year when injuries started to happen. But to lose Dylan Brown and Kalen Ponga, I mean, you couldn't have asked for 2 worse injuries, especially for the length that they're at. A month, 2 months of footy is a long time.
They were looking good, mate. They were looking so good. That Dylan Brown break and just that little flick pass out the back in that first half, and Ponga was just looking back to his best. I was thinking him and Reece Walsh for that Queensland #1 battle was going to be very interesting over the next couple months. So we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, looking up to 2 months, that's going to be a blow. Tyson, mate, I just want to get you on some quick fire ones. Good or bad for fans? So I'm just going to throw out some scenarios for you. You've been over this Bronson Xerri situation. You can probably enlighten us a little bit. I've seen Ivan Cleary come out and say someone is lying and telling porcupines about a potential swap with Isaac Tungor. Reportedly, obviously, wanting out after finding out he'd be dropped. Gus Gould stepped in, tried to clarify some things. Firstly, what have you made of your situation? Because I do have a question after it, leading into a transfer window. But just what can you tell us on the latest in that situation?
Yeah, it's a weird situation that's kind of there's new things are being tossed around every couple of hours about it, and it's one of those stories that's really hard to keep track of because a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. You get what first you look at the Bulldog side. Why are the Bulldogs dropping Bronson Xerri? Ran for over 150 meters in Vegas, 26 tackles, only 2 misses, no errors. They're pretty good stats. I thought he played pretty good last year. Then you look at Bronson Xerri's side. Why are you asking for a release? Or why are you thinking about asking for a release after you've just been told you've been dropped? Like, is that's not like a realistic way of thinking. You don't get dropped and instantly go, I need to leave this club. Like, it was a couple of weeks, different story. But yeah, and then also he was apparently very close to not playing in Vegas. The Bulldogs were going to drop him for Vegas. Yeah, like I said, there's so much about this story that just is baffling. So yeah, where we are, what you've heard is where we currently sit with the whole thing, and that he's not going to play this week, and he didn't actually formally asked for a release, but there was talk, speculation from the camp that that's what was coming, and he was going into training on Sunday morning to tell the players that he didn't want to play there anymore, but that didn't happen. So we can only speak on what's happened, and that's him and Gus have had a breakfast. There's a slight truce, I guess, in the situation, but if he's playing New South Wales Cup for the next 2-3 weeks, I don't expect him to be at the club for much longer.
Okay, a transfer window, good or bad for fans?
Yeah, I think it's good. The NRL transfer window at the moment is 365 days of the year, right? Like it's if we look at American sports and other successful sports around the world, transfer windows are in all of them. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Mate, I'm a bit of a crowd nerd. 2 games in back-to-back weekends at Suncorp Stadium, the Dolphins and Broncos. Broncos have had the first game. Dolphins only got 16K to a Queensland derby against the Titans on a Sunday evening. Unwanted time slot, that 6 p.m. one. 20K the weekend before, Sunday after footy against the Rabbitohs. So if that's their ceiling, a little bit concerned maybe there's going to be a hangover down the track with the Dolphins. I think that's something to watch. But just 2 games at Suncorp in one weekend, is that good or bad for fans?
If you're a Brisbane fan, then that's great. Like, I mean, I don't go for the Dragons, but when the Dragons are playing at Jubilee Oval, I like to go and watch the footy, you know? So if there's more options for fans to watch the footy, there's more options. Like, I wish they used, I think it's KO Stadium at Redcliffe a bit more. Like, I love suburban grounds and I love the smaller grounds, and you probably pack that out if you're the Dolphins fan, but you don't want to shut fans out either. So yeah, I think play as many games as you want. If the turf can hold up, then yeah, that's a good thing for fans.
Sydney mentality. Mate, afternoon footy at Leichhardt Oval. This is just a nice volleyball for you. Good or bad for fans?
Great for fans. There's no better stadium in the world. So yeah, great for fans.
You were out there, weren't you? How was it?
Yeah, it was actually too hot, to be honest. Yeah, my partner who was at the game with me, she spent majority of the game trying to sit down on the hill, so everyone was blocking the sun from hitting her. But yeah, I mean, there's not much better, than Leichhardt Oval, and you would have seen the scenes and the pictures and that came out of there. I mean, if you're playing against the Tigers, and it's like that every time, that's a hard place to win a footy game.
And mate, this is a sad one for me personally, but Queensland teams bombing early in the season. 4 teams, 1 win to the Dolphins. The ladder is currently Broncos 15th, Cowboys 16th, Titans 17th. Queensland's slow start to the season. Good or bad for fans, mate?
I just I like the style of footy Queensland teams play. So, yeah, I'd say bad for fans. You don't want to see every Queensland team lose. Like, I love all the Sydney teams more than I love Queensland teams, but yeah, but especially a powerhouse like the Broncos, you don't want them to be struggling against everyone because then that makes the wins against them a bit less and less every week, you know. So, yeah, bad for fans.
What a kind-hearted New South Welshman we have on the podcast, everyone. How nice to see. And mate, just on you, we can now catch you weekly. We chatted a little bit about it before, but you're going to be in Bloke in the Bar every week now. That's pretty special for you and where you've been able to come from. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing? You've got a weekly segment there with Kempy.
Yeah, so yeah, we have the coach story of the week on the Monday review show. We dive into the biggest story. Today was Bronson Xerri in today's episode, which has just been released. We've also got a show on Wednesday called The Yarn, where Kempy and I sit down and discuss the biggest stories about rugby league in depth. Whereas we only get 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the big show for that. So that's a new show that we've started. And yeah, it's pretty cool. The response the first couple of episodes that we've done has been really great, and really happy about it. And yeah, no, it's going to be good, especially throughout the year. We know rugby league's just this big pot that keeps boiling over and boiling over. So there's so much to talk about, and fans love it, right? So if we can give fans a little bit more insight and that little bit more, I guess, deep dives into teams and into clubs and storylines and things like that, it just makes the game better. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for everyone involved, really.
You've come a long way since you and I were fanboys at the airport waiting for John Jones to arrive. That was one of our big career moments together, mate. So we still love that photo too. What's happened to our boy John, man?
Yeah, look, I don't think he's going to be fighting in the UFC anytime soon, after recent news. But look, hey, let's use that word fanboy pretty loosely. We did file for both Fox Sports and the Telly that day, so it wasn't just like we were there waiting for autographs.
That is true. It wasn't a work capacity. I might have had a tear in my eyes. I was walking away from the interview, though, mate. I was fanboying a bit, I'm going to admit. Tyson, mate, look, thank you so much for taking the time. Broncos Tigers grand final. I don't hate it.
Well, you guys have to win a game for that. Tigers are one of the undefeated teams in the competition so far. So
I,
the
I
steps to climb.
I cannot wait until you guys get tons of momentum, only to finish ninth yet again.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Benji Marshall,
can-
mate, next time we're at a job together, I'm going to tell Benji that that's what you said, and we'll see how your altercation goes this time.
I can feel it coming. Lock in ninth. Broncos bounce back fourth, back to the grand final. Mate, thank you so much for joining us. We might have to get you on down the track in the season just to see how they are tracking for that top 8 battle. But Tyson, thank you very much for joining us on Season Ticket Holders.
Thanks, mate. Anytime.
Legend. Thanks, brother. And thank you, everyone, for supporting us. Jump on, give us a like, subscribe, follow. It really helps us. As always, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.